the 26th of January, 1945. What kind of nightmare makes a man climb onto a burning, half-destroyed tank while the air screams with machine gun fire? The snow is turning black with blood, and the enemy keeps coming so close you can smell their gun oil and frozen breath. On that freezing morning near the village of Holtzwihr in northeastern France, during the final brutal weeks of World War II, a thin line of exhausted American soldiers from the 3rd Infantry Division was collapsing under the weight of a massive German counterattack launched as part of the last violent spasms following the Battle of the Bulge. And in the middle of that chaos stood a wrecked USM-10 tank destroyer, its armor ripped open, its engine burning, its crew dead or wounded, abandoned in a field that had become a killing ground. And beside it, a young officer whose life had already been shaped by hunger, fear, and war. Lieutenant Audie Murphy, who that day would do something so extreme that even seasoned veterans struggled to describe it without shaking. Because the Germans threw everything they had at that position: infantry waves, machine guns, mortars, and armor, determined to break through and crush the American line before it could regroup. And as the attack opened, shells slammed into the frozen ground with a wet, concussive thud, tearing bodies apart, leaving men screaming for medics who crawled forward under fire, hands numb, faces splattered with blood that steamed faintly in the cold, dragging the wounded back toward shallow ditches and shell holes, while German bullets snapped inches overhead. And Murphy, already wounded in the leg, ordered his remaining men to pull back into the trees to avoid annihilation, knowing that if the enemy broke through here, the entire flank could unravel. And then, in a moment that defied every instinct of self-preservation, he climbed onto the burning M10, fully exposed, flames licking at his boots, ammunition cooking off inside the wreck, and manned its .50 caliber machine gun, calling down artillery on his own position as German troops advanced through the smoke and snow, some so close he could see the whites of their eyes, their faces twisted in rage and shock at the sight of a single American refusing to die. And for nearly an hour, he held them there, alone, firing until the barrel glowed, his ears ringing, his body shaking from blood loss and cold, the air filled with the metallic stench of cordite and burning oil, while around him the field became a slaughterhouse of twisted metal, torn uniforms, and frozen corpses. And in the shadows of that hell, medics continued their work under fire, cutting away clothing stiff with ice, stuffing wounds with bandages soaked red in seconds, whispering reassurances to boys who knew they were dying, their hands trembling, not from fear, but from exhaustion, and the horror of having to choose who could be saved and who could not. Because ammunition was running low, stretchers were scarce, and every movement drew enemy fire. And as the German assault intensified, a mortar round exploded close enough to rip a man in half, showering the snow with fragments of flesh, leaving survivors gagging and retching even as they fought on. And still, the enemy could not advance, because that half-destroyed tank, which should have been a tomb, became a fortress, and the Germans, despite repeated assaults, were pinned down, cut apart by machine gun fire and artillery, called in with desperate precision, until finally, when Murphy's ammunition was nearly gone, and his voice hoarse from shouting coordinates, the attack broke, the surviving German soldiers pulling back, leaving the field littered with bodies and equipment. And only then did Murphy climb down from the wreck, collapse from his wounds, and allow himself to be treated. The medics working quickly, their faces gray, their eyes hollow, knowing they had just witnessed something that should not have been possible, because this was not a clean, heroic moment, preserved in photographs, but a raw, terrifying episode of close-quarters warfare, where death came screaming, where fear was constant, and where courage meant standing your ground while everything inside you begged to run. And this single stand helped stop a breakthrough that could have cost countless more lives, a fact often overshadowed by the legend that followed. Yet when survivors spoke of that day, they remembered not only the man on the burning tank, but the screams of the wounded, the smell of blood on snow, the medics crawling through fire to reach them, and the realization that war is not glory, but endurance pushed beyond human limits. And even as medals were later awarded and stories retold, the true horror remained in the memories of those who were there. The sound of bullets hitting flesh, the sight of friends dying inches away, the knowledge that survival was decided by seconds and chance. And that is why this moment still chills historians today. Because the Germans could not stop that half-destroyed tank until there were no enemies left in front of it. And even then, the cost was written across a frozen field in France. So tell me, after hearing this, do you think such acts of courage are born from training, desperation, or something deeper that only reveals itself when a man is pushed to the edge of hell itself?